If I can find my agenda, here we go. Item number 7 are the recommendations for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. Mike, are you leading this? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Council members, before you we have a recommendation of awards for roughly $121 million in projects for affordable housing, sustainable communities. And I want to walk, my colleagues and I want to walk you through that process. I'll be helped by Susan Riggs and Kate White to cover the specific aspects of housing and transportation in more detail. But I have a few overview things that I would like to cover before we get to those particulars. That will be the motion. No, thanks. So, yeah, is that better? Okay. In January and leading up to January, when you took a vote on the guidelines for this program, we articulated a vision that we hoped was broad and inclusive, and whether it stated explicitly the goals of SB 862 and 535, it certainly was implicit in this statement, and we think we've really achieved these goals and those in statute as well. So to roll back the clock, in January, where we were was we had conducted numerous hearings around the state and had received literally thousands of comments on the guidelines and worked diligently across the agencies to sort out the meaning of those comments and translate them into a programmatic guideline, which we brought to you on January 20th and you approved. Within a matter of days, we had a notice of funds available out on the street and began to work with constituent groups to give technical advice on the development of those concept applications. We chose concept applications, a two-step process, because these are very large and complex proposals. We're looking at everything from the engineering and architecture and site planning to the finance and environmental and transportation impacts of all the facilities being built. I, for a while, kept a binder on my desk of a Todd Housing Program application. It was about 18 inches high, and Gail Goldberg has seen many of those. It's a daunting thing to see. So we didn't want to ask everyone to prepare those when they had perhaps not a great chance of being financed, nor did we have the resources at the state to review such documents in great quantity. So the concept applications were a tool to use to screen the initial phase of projects down to, as the guidelines said, 200% of what we had available in funding. We went a little bit over that in what we accepted to full application. The concept review process drew 147 applications requesting $760 million, far over our 200% guideline recommendation for review. And so we needed a method to reduce these. First of all, out of the 147 applications, 42 did not meet critical threshold requirements. It's understandable in the first year of a program, there was a great deal of enthusiasm. Not everybody completely understood what it meant to be ready to build. And so a number of applications were not all the way there. We do encourage them and did encourage them, because some of them were quite good, to continue their efforts to be fully prepared for round 2 of the program. That took us down to 105. And at that point, we were still well above the 200% that we had said in the guidelines we would review. There was only one element in the guidelines which scaled. All of the other elements were yes, no. They were ministerial. You had them or you didn't have them. But leverage was an item that was gradated in percentages of other funds relative to percentages of state funds involved in a program. So the way this worked was we took the 147, got to 100 and, oh, I think it was 105, 104, and then based on leverage, which across the board averaged around 4 to 1, and in different jurisdictions was much higher. For example, in the San Francisco Bay Area, MTC's applications leveraged at over 6 to 1. Other jurisdictions in the state were half that. So this was an important feature. Had we not done this and settled for lower leverage projects, we would not be before you today to tell you we're building 2,000 units of affordable housing and reducing 750,000 tons of greenhouse gases. The numbers would have been far less had we not had the support of other dollars beyond ours. So we felt strongly that while this was a measure of convenience to get down to the right number of applications for review, it also had significant positive benefits for the program. We got those 56 applications by going down that list of leverage in leverage rank order until we hit the 200% mark of funding. And then we added a little bit more so that every MPO in the state that had at least one application was represented in the final pool. So we did invite some who had lower leverage to give them the opportunity to compete. That was the only advantage they were given. They then had to compete on the same level as everyone else. But it seemed right to have all of our MPOs. And in another section of the guidelines, we had articulated our right and responsibility to do that. That took us to 56 applications, and we assembled a broad team of your staff, experts in each of the things your agency does. We had housing experts looking at housing aspects, transportation. At transportation, we had Cal EPA staff looking at policy goals, especially those associated with Cal EnviroScreen. And we had the Air Resources Board looking at the project's greenhouse gas reduction aspects. It was a multi-staged process. The first step was for the applicants themselves to score based on all of the questions that were asked of them. And this has been found to be a very useful project because it helps the applicants focus on the way we're going to be making evaluations later on in the process. So there aren't real snow jobs here. There's real attempts to get the right number so that we could come to some agreement about the quality of projects. The process then went to groups of anywhere from 3 to 5 who had different specialties and brought their specialties to those teams and scored the entire application. Those scored applications then went to a review panel that consisted of some of our most senior personnel in these fields to review and in some cases assemble the initial scorers to ask some questions about how they got where they got. So there was a real quality control process at that point. And then to make sure that we understood and scored on the correct variables, we sent these scores back to the applicants and asked them if we had missed something, if we had misinterpreted something, if we were wrong about something. And of course, it's a very competitive program, so 19 out of 50 said, yes, you got something wrong, and referred that back to us, where an appeals committee reviewed that, and in some cases did award some more points, and unfortunately, in some cases, took a few away. But that was the process. It was a very well-studied process, one that we thought had lots of controls, checks, and balances, and did engage all of your professional staff. So the result of that, after getting those 56 projects, actually some dropped out. The reason I say 50 and our other number is 56 is some dropped out, and we found 3 more that were ineligible upon further review, so we really ended up with 50. That brought us down to 28 projects that fit within the 121 some million dollars, and that was after a jurisdictional cap, which we will talk about some more later, I'm sure, and I'm sure various others wish to talk about that. But given the 28 who we're proposing to you today, we're nearly at 750,000 metric tons of avoided greenhouse gas emissions. We're building over 2,000 units of affordable housing with these projects, if you approve them. There are 28 projects. They're in 21 cities and 19 counties. And they do afford $32 million for transit, walking, and biking, and $92 million in benefit to disadvantaged communities. We have far exceeded both our affordable housing goals and our disadvantaged community goals, which were 50% of the $120 million. I want to say another word here about the jurisdictional cap. This was a very hard decision to come to last fall. When we discussed the guidelines in various communities, we knew that this would work a hardship on some and create a benefit to others. We knew that with limited funding, we had to choose one of those. We believe in future years, with more generous funding, we can accomplish both. More service to our largest urban areas while still being inclusive in terms of all of California's MPOs. But this year, we decided that the cap was helpful in achieving the goal of having examples of what every kind of community in every part of the state can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We want to establish that this year. We want to see participation from all those communities next year, and we want to find a way to work more effectively with our largest jurisdiction to not penalize them for our desire to reach others. And so finally, this just late one night looking at too much data, came up with a number that made sense to my family at the dinner table, which was 750,000 tons of GHG comes from not burning 81 million gallons of gas, which would be the same of all the residents of Citrus Heights here in the north and all the residents of Newport Beach in the south did not drive for 1 year. So this is substantial. And with that, I'll turn it over to Susan Riggs, Director of the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Good morning. Susan Riggs, Acting Director of the Department of Community Housing and Community Development. So in addition to our emphasis on greenhouse gas reductions, we had a couple of other requirements under our authorizing legislation. One of those was to expend at least 50% of the funds available on affordable housing. And we well exceeded that goal. 67% of the projects that are being recommended today include some aspect of affordable housing that represents 77% of the overall funding that's available. So we've gone well beyond the 50% requirement. In addition, we've showed real diversity in the types of affordable housing that we're proposing to fund, ranging from extremely low income individuals that really are below minimum wage. These are folks that are likely on public assistance and really need support of affordable housing, the safety net, all the way up to low-income housing. So we're really excited to say that these projects are recommended to fund over 2,000 units of much-needed affordable housing in the state of California. Another requirement of the enabling legislation is to invest in disadvantaged communities. 50% of the funding is required to benefit disadvantaged communities. And again, we well exceeded that requirement by investing, proposing to invest 75% of all the funds within or to benefit disadvantaged communities. As you can see on the screen, the majority of the funding is actually going to be invested in these communities, which is a really important investment to really create new economic and community development for these communities that need it. So the next couple slides pertain to the co-benefits most commonly cited in the applications that we received. This was another requirement of the legislation that we create a range of co-benefits through the investments. These are investments that are allowing us to have more active communities by installing active transportation, bike trails, walking trails, complete streets, which really have the ancillary benefit of reducing chronic conditions related to obesity, that get cars off the roads, that reduce air pollution that contributes to respiratory ailments. So these are some of the most commonly cited co-benefits. Obviously we're making connections to job-rich areas by connecting them through transit or siting housing close to job-rich areas. We're reducing air quality hazards and access to parks that enable people to be more active. Obviously, with the 2,000 units that are being proposed to be created through these investments, we're reducing housing costs for those households that will be able to be living there. Also, the location of the housing is really connected closely to transportation that will enable them to utilize alternative modes of transportation and getting them out of their cars, reducing their overall housing and transportation cost burden. As Mike mentioned, one of our goals in the program was to create geographic diversity throughout the state, recognizing that disadvantaged communities are located throughout the state, and oftentimes much of the impact from our air pollution related to greenhouse gas and other emissions is really being impacted in the Central Valley and inland areas. And so we wanted to ensure that communities outside of our larger metropolitan areas that are transit rich also have the opportunity to compete. And so we believe we did that really well. 9 regions are represented in the recommendations. 15 counties, 21 cities, and in this particular list of cities, through that jurisdictional cap that Mike talked about, the city of National City, one of the lower income communities in San Diego County, is recommended to receive an investment, very, very important on a transit corridor. Walnut Creek, Oakland, and Riverside all are being recommended in this category. This is a map that shows the geographic diversity. Obviously, with additional funding, we hope to even exceed that next year. But certainly, we have really attained a lot greater diversity in our investments, recommended investments, than we've seen in prior programs that HCD has administered. So we're really proud of that. So we're going to turn now just to some examples of the projects that are being recommended. All of these, all of the projects we're really, really proud of. We think that they're great, investments for our greenhouse gas reduction fund dollars. However, these really stand out for a variety of reasons, and so we just want to highlight a few for you. The first is Hotel Fresno, and this one is really important for a variety of reasons. This is just 0.2 miles from the proposed high-speed rail terminal there in Fresno. So it's going to create a great nexus with high-speed rail and really provide some investment there. This was previously a vacant, blighted building that will be transitioned through adaptive reuse to a mix of market rate and affordable housing. In the city of Fresno, I think that they are really looking for a more vibrant downtown that will would include some mixture of incomes for their community members. And so this is a great representation of that, with about 50% of the units overall being provided at affordable rates. Currently, the project is served by bus, but bus rapid transit is proposed to come in the next couple of years, and so that will even improve the connectivity to other parts of the community. And then finally, this is a great example of an investment in a disadvantaged community. This particular community is in the top tier of the disadvantaged community scoring, and so a much needed investment in the community to revitalize. So next we'll go to March Veterans Village. This is in Riverside, California. This is a partnership between Coachella Valley Housing Coalition and the U.S. Veterans Initiative. This will house, provide housing for much needed housing for veterans. This is on the prior March Air Force Base location, and so this is another adaptive reuse scenario that will contribute to a much more vibrant community in the former Air Force Base. This is again located in a disadvantaged community. It's actually going to meet LEED silver status, and so will also provide benefits to the community through reduced emissions through the building. And again, this is a 100% affordable project. It's going to provide both the housing that's needed for our veteran population, but also much needed services to ensure that they can address any underlying issues that may have come from serving in the military, mental and physical ailments. And finally, for me, it's Camino 23 in Oakland, California. This is a project that's served by bus rapid transit. It's just 300 feet from the BRT stop. 32 affordable homes will be located there, and again, located in a disadvantaged community. With that, I will close, and I'll turn it over to Kate White. Thank you.
Susan. I'm going to quickly highlight 3 more model projects and then move to next steps for the program, and finally request that you approve this recommended action before you today. But before I do that, I actually there's been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this program. Mike mentioned the staff at HCD, Caltrans, ARB, Strategic Growth Council. If anybody worked on this program in the over the last year, I would like you to raise your hand and be acknowledged in the room. Thank you. So I'm very proud of this package of projects. I think they really represent truly integrated transportation and housing program. We were able to see a number of new partnerships develop at the local level because of this program. We had transportation agencies talking to housing department folks on the local level that had never met each other before. And it was really an opportunity for the housing sector to think about transportation choices more than maybe ever before, as well as in turn, the transportation sector to think about transportation efficient communities. So I think we're getting a tremendous amount out of this program. This is a great example before you right here in Los Angeles, the MacArthur Park, right at the Westlake MacArthur red and purple lines, 82 units, 100% affordable, improving access to this major metro stop, and 7,000 square feet of retail located in a disadvantaged community with a number of co-benefits. And then the next project I wanted to highlight for you also is actually a standalone transportation project, but it's Vanpool expansion, and this is serving our Central Valley communities and expanding a very successful Vanpool program for farm workers getting to work where there's little public transit options and little access to reliable vehicles. And so these are quite disadvantaged communities throughout 8 counties in the San Joaquin, Imperial, and Salinas Valleys, and many co-benefits, including reducing transportation costs for farm workers. These are some of the lowest wage employees in California, and improving, of course, air quality in some of the most polluted air basins. And finally, 777 7 Park. And this is a project in San Jose with access to Caltrain, Amtrak, light rail, bus, a new bike share program that the Bay Area is greatly expanding tenfold within a half a block of this project. There'll be a pod for the new bike share program, 82 units, 100% affordable. Free transit passes are being included for the residents and a number of co-benefits, including providing greater access to employment in jobs-rich, but as we know, housing undersupplied Silicon Valley. So those are some of model projects. In terms of our next steps with the program, I am pleased to say that we have 2 scheduled publicized workshops that hopefully is on everyone's calendar. These are the public opportunities to do some reflections on the program. What were the lessons learned? How can we improve for the next round, which starts immediately, looking at revising the guidelines in August, and then this fall to release a revised guidelines, hold further public workshops to get feedback, and have the new revised guidelines in the winter before you for approval. All of this is posted on the Strategic Growth Council website. There's also flyers in the back of the room for those of you in the room. So finally, very pleased to present to you our recommended staff action for the council today. We request your approval for awarding $121.9 million in greenhouse gas reduction fund dollars to 28 projects supporting greenhouse gas emissions reductions and related co-benefits. And I will turn it back to staff for any further questions. Thank you.
So, council members, any questions or comments at this juncture? Gail.
Thank you. Mike, would you talk for a moment about the projects that were not part of the recommendation because of the jurisdictional cap? Do I understand that there are 4 projects?
That's right, Gail. Sorry, Ms. Goldberg. Known you for too many years, I guess, to call you otherwise. Yes, there were 4, 3 from the Los Angeles region and 1 from the San Francisco region, and they were very high-scoring projects. My personal opinion was that they were among the best. And so it was very difficult to employ the cap, but the cap was what we had committed to in the guidelines, and so staff was obligated to do that.
Other comments, questions? Yes, Bob.
In the listing of all the projects, there was no mention of greenhouse gas reduction. In the reports that you sent out, I'm sure that was something that you covered, but when we got the report on the agricultural lands, metric tons were listed. Nowhere in the material did I see any mention of metric tons, and I'm just curious as to why, since that's the primary objective here.
I apologize for that. We certainly have that data, and we had it in tabular form. It didn't make its way into the packets. The spread, I can describe this, and I can get you the final material immediately, but the spread, because 55% of all points available to a project were their greenhouse gas emission achievements, this tended to mildly dominate the scoring, so that it was very rare for a project that was not among the top 2 tiers of greenhouse gas emission projects, that would be the top 2 quintiles, to be recommended for award. There were a couple that were so overwhelmingly high in their scores for social and other co-benefits that they were in the 3rd quintile of greenhouse gas achievement, but that was rare. The clustering of recommended awards were either medium on social benefits and high on greenhouse gas emissions, or high on social benefits and high on greenhouse gas emissions. And I can get you those after the meeting. I think that though I would want to work more with ARB to get this too, I think that we had a relatively efficient expenditure in dollars per ton. I know that sometimes when we think on the market, maybe a ton is $12 these days, or I don't know what the last auction was, they're fairly low. And so the question is, why would we spend $100, $150 a ton to get a reduction? There was a very important paper delivered at UC Davis by David Green from Oak Ridge National Labs. He spent 2 years at UC Davis on leave from Oak Ridge to answer this question: what would it take to get to California's 2050 goals, given everything we know about technology advancement and things that are in the pipeline for development, things that might find market saturation before 2050? And among those tools was a realignment of the spatial arrangement of housing, jobs, and other amenities. And certainly he tried to get to the goals with the least cost method that had the highest certainty of being achieved. That's where the project started. Where the project ended was what has famously now been called the all of the above strategy, because looking at every technology that was available and given its chance of actually succeeding and being in the marketplace, it took everything that we could possibly do to get to our 2050 goals, and that included the realignment. So some things are going to be more expensive in getting to our 2050 goals than others.
A couple other, you want to?
I just wanted to follow up quickly on that. If you have available, or if staff has available, a couple of examples of some of the projects and what the estimate of reduction is, if you could let us know, I think it would just be, to put it in some context, it would be helpful.
Sure, sure.
Couple other things. There was a lot of discussion that we had about the relationship between the MPOs and these recommended projects. Could you talk a little bit about how that whole process worked with the MPOs and how they're feeling about this right now?
Well, it certainly varied from MPO to MPO, and the amount of participation from the various MPOs was different. And certainly there are some who you will no doubt hear from today that are unhappy with the outcome of the program. There are others who I think you might hear from today that were pleased with the outcome of the program. It's unfortunate that being pleased or unpleased with a program is decided by whether you won or not. I think that this has been a good program, and I'm sorry we have not been able to cultivate a more seamless relationship with the MPOs. We tried a few things. We tried to reach out. We certainly did, with all but one MPO, get participation at the concept phase. We required as a threshold condition of all applications that the MPO for that district sign off on whether this proposal coming to us was consistent or not consistent with their sustainable community strategy. That was fundamental. And then beyond that, we had invited the MPOs at the full application stage to work with us to get the full applications, to rank them, and to discuss them with us. And really only one MPO did that, and that was MTC, along with help from ABAG. I think over time we could succeed at that. I see no reason why we can't. We all have good relationships with the MPOs on a variety of other things, and I think we're just going to have to develop a culture that finds us being a little more cooperative and a little less competitive.
I'm sure all the other council members would salute that. I think that's something that's important to us. Last comment, Mike, is that there were a number of projects that received below 70 score that were recommending funding. That's a fairly low score in my book.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious as to why you're recommending scores that on a number, when ranked, came out that low.
Okay, I'm going to ask Susan Riggs, because this really grew out of a lot of experience with the Prop 1A programs, the Todd Housing Program, and the integrated IIG program. I can't remember. So Susan, why don't you take that one?
So I think you're referencing, there's the percentage. So this has to do in, kind of the culmination of all of the criteria together, the weighting of the scores. And so really, once we ranked the project based on their final score and applied the jurisdictional cap, that allowed us to work down and to reach into some of the geographic diversity that we referred to a couple of times. But the final score really reflects, the weighting and the culmination of the 55% greenhouse gas reduction weighting, and then the readiness criteria that had to do with leverage and the ability to move the project forward quickly. In other words, they were shovel ready. They'd gone through their entitlement process and were ready to go. And then finally, there was a bucket, I think it was about 35% of the criteria, having to do with all of the other public policy criteria that we were looking at, the inclusion of affordable housing investments to benefit disadvantaged communities, resident engagement, community engagement activities, all of the co-benefits, all of those things. And so for those projects, after you weighted everything, they may have ranked lower. And again, I mean, the bulk of the scoring really being 55% being the ability to reduce greenhouse gases. And so if you look at some of these projects, they oftentimes were in areas where, access to high quality transit was a little bit lesser than maybe in some of the bigger metropolitan areas, but understanding that, demographic shifts in the state are going to drive growth there in the future, and understanding that those communities are in many cases bear the impact of the air pollution related to emissions and greenhouse gases, that it was important to invest in those communities. And so, it's really the culmination of all the factors together that, put the scores where they were, but then once they were ranked, they were, eligible given the amount of funding that we had available and the implementation of the jurisdictional cap.
Consider sort of drawing a hard line at 70%, let's say, and saving money?
It wasn't something that we had contemplated as a group. I mean, again, just, recognizing where these projects were. I mean, we were actually very pleased to see that the projects scored as well as they did. Given the geographic diversity, I mean, we otherwise wouldn't probably have seen anything, in Riverside, and, in some of these communities, certainly the Van Pool, which, we felt to be a very important project for our agricultural workers, but it's very difficult for that to compete, at the same scale as a project that is, adjacent to, the BART in San Francisco, but it's equally important for those communities and for, the agricultural workers that, are oftentimes, driving very, very long distance, in maybe vehicles that, are emitting a lot of air pollutants. And so we've, found all of those projects to be viable projects, very important in, achieving the mission and of the program. And so, given what the projects were and how they were performing, we thought that it was really important to fund them.
Secretary Kelly, but you...
I'll defer to Ms. Goldberg.
Thank you. Before I make my comment, I would like to first commend the staff, because I think that it has been remarkable that you have been able to do all of this in a very, very short period of time, and it's a remarkable job, and I think we all owe you a good deal of thanks. So now, that being said, I'm going to, in the spirit of I'm a new member, so I can get away with a little bit, I want to acknowledge that I did read the report. And I acknowledge the footnote that you made to agenda items 6 and 7, which admonished us to confine our comments to framing the issues for upcoming workshops, not for comments on specific or immediate guideline revision. I apologize. I can't resist a comment on one specific and one immediate for me. I think we need to send a clear message that while the cap achieves some purpose in the first round with a smaller amount of money, I think we must find another way of geographic distribution that does not disadvantage the large cities that are making a huge investment in transit and who have the most disadvantaged communities. So I think that it is very important that we send a message that we're going to do that so that we do not waste the entire workshop session on getting rid of the cap, and we can concentrate on some of the other issues that are important. So that to me is one, I think we need to send some sort of message that we're going to take care of that. And then secondly and immediately, there was an interesting discussion just now about projects that were 70%. And we heard from our executive director that 4 projects that were very good projects that scored very high were eliminated based solely on the jurisdictional cap. There are 4 great projects out there that reduce greenhouse gases that are shovel-ready and ready to go. And I would like very much to consider the moment we have an allocation for the second round. If I had my way, we'd do it today, but we don't have an allocation for the second round. But the moment we have the allocation for the second round, I would hope that this council will consider funding those projects immediately and not putting them through a second process or a second round. Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you. Mike, I want to return to part of the discussion that Mr. Fisher had with you. I just want to establish a couple of things about the program. I've either heard in verbal presentation or in prior conversation a specific greenhouse gas benefit from the entirety of this program. And can you just remind us of what that figure is? It's on the order of 700,000 metric tons. Or
723,000 metric tons.
Okay. That, can you also talk a little bit about, there's a lot of controversy or at least conversations about the affordable housing and the role of affordable housing in greenhouse gas emission reductions. And we've talked a little bit about co-benefits of the project, but you and I have had offline separate conversations about the scoring and what you saw in many of these affordable housing projects. We do have a statutory mandate to reach a minimum of affordable housing in this program, but what is it about these projects, these affordable housing projects, that led to strong greenhouse gas emission scores?
Any housing, first of all, near transit would benefit greenhouse gas emission reduction. However, the lower income Californians have a higher likelihood of using transit than other Californians, even when those other Californians are moved into the vicinity of a transit-rich area. Mm-hmm. So there's a bit of a spike in the points or in the greenhouse gas reductions from serving a lower income community. That's been established in research literature for a couple of decades now. There's some exciting new research, which we hope is peer reviewed before the next round, which suggests that even the lowest income groups, which Susan pointed out in her talk, actually differentiate from the others and are even a more probable user of transit and therefore more likely helping our GHG benefits. I've said to you before, Secretary Kelly, that I know we often talk about the affordable housing because we're very proud of it, and we know how dire the situation is in California, but this is first and foremost a GHG program. And by putting highly probable transit riders next door to transit, we think that we're fulfilling that.
And so if you had an applicant that was an affordable housing project that was perhaps out in the middle of nowhere, and the options for mobility for that project was vehicular travel only, it probably wouldn't have scored very well in this program, right?
It would not. The
Right.
the VMC still would have been very
So
high.
you have a universe of folks who are higher propensity transit users, and you're awarding projects that not just provide housing for those folks, but also bring those folks and provide safe shelter in places that have good access to mobility.
Yeah, and the research is very clear again that same family living in an isolated, affordable home and dependent on an automobile is far more likely when moving to a transit-rich area to use transit than, let's say, a middle-class family moving from the suburbs into a transit-rich area. It's simply a difference in the probability of use.
And then just moving to the issue of shovel-ready projects, I think this was in your verbal testimony. On balance, the amount of money that's being put in each project by the Commission today, assuming that we approve the grants, are these generally the final pieces to get projects done? These are sort of the closures in the financing necessary. Is that?
They are, and the leverage ratio on average over 6 to 1. So we're looking at constructing somewhere in the vicinity of $840 million worth of projects that will, I think, make our $120 million go an awfully long way. These projects, some are phased, but this is enough to get the first phase built. So there may be more. Some of these may come back. Some of the transit-rich provider areas have already told me they're coming back.
Okay. And then this may be for Susan or it may be for you, but just in the scoring that was done and where you draw the line on what scores are funded, it reads to me like, you scored projects based on the known criteria that were contained in the guidelines that you brought forward. After you scored the projects, you went as far as you can go with the money available. And
That's
so
true.
scoring levels at some level were in the 60s. We have 4 projects that scored well, 2 of them below 70, but still high enough to otherwise be funded, but for the jurisdictional cap. Is that?
That's correct.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay. I would just, on that score, I would want to join Ms. Goldberg in sort of encouraging the staff and the council to consider, as soon as we could, options to move the higher scoring projects that only lost because of the jurisdictional cap. And I understand what we were trying to achieve with the jurisdictional cap. I think there are a lot of ways to achieve geographic equity. I do think you did achieve geographic equity too in the program, but would want to consider what we can do to move quickly on those as quickly as we can. So the last comment I just want to make too, I know I work in the transportation world most of my time, and we spend a lot of time partnering with our regional friends, MPOs and others on transportation policy. I do think that the push in the lead for greater sustainability out of transportation historically in California has been driven largely at the regional level. And I think the partnership is extremely important. It is in the transportation sector, and it is in these other growth areas that we're moving forward on. I have candidly been a little frustrated myself on the lack of alignment between the regions and some of our activities, because I think we're all trying to achieve the same goal. So as we consider workshops in July on how to move forward, I just want to lend my voice to supporting the idea that we can come up with structures and processes where we are a little bit more attacking the issues of growth and how to do it sustainably in an enhanced kind of partnership way. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank
I
you.
would just answer that by saying I couldn't agree more. First of all, I think staff would be pleased to look at the options for funding, if that's what the council wishes us to do, and report back. And on MPO alignment, I really feel that this is a lost opportunity this year. It's not lost yet, next year yet.
Yeah.
So I always thought that coupling the tremendous on-the-ground knowledge for the region that the region has, along with the state's understanding of what the state as a whole is asked to accomplish, we should have a good partnership, and if not this year, next.
I agree with your earlier comments too about sometimes a view of a win or a loss, may dampen the whole process. But I just want to reiterate that much of the work that's being done to move toward a more sustainable future is being done regionally. I view much of my day-to-day activities in transportation as trying to figure out how the state can best partner toward that shared objective. And we do it. We're considering ways to do it across the board in transportation strictly. And it's a challenge, and it's a challenge here as well. But it's one that I think should be a shared goal for all of us, is how to make sure we're attacking this collaboratively.
Other questions, comments from council? Secretary Caballero.
So I've heard the discussion about the cap, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made by my fellow council members. One of the things I'd like us to consider is I'm hoping that the lessons learned workshops will provide us a really good overview of all the different interests that are out there. California is a complex state, and regions are really different from each other. And as an advocate for rural California, I want to make sure we're not leaving them off the train as we move down this GHG path. Because when we start talking about removing the cap, which philosophically I agree with you, then you don't reach into communities that are trying to do things to be able to reduce greenhouse gases as well. And those are rural communities. The communities that you ended up seeing funded were a little bit different. And so when we talk about the cap, I'd also like to talk about SALC, because I was visited by people who want to make sure that we have enough money for our agricultural conservancies, and the presentation we saw right before this, and I think that's really important. That program should link in very carefully with AHSC, with this program, so that we're not funding a project that's going to reduce greenhouse gases, and then they're building mini ranchettes right next door because we didn't, protect that land. So we need to link that. But also, there is some pressure to do a rural set-aside in this program. That way you're not competing and looking at a 70 score as opposed to a 90 score from someone else, so that you're looking at it in isolation. I'm not sure that I'm there yet, but I think that that to be fair, there are a number of requests that we're going to get. I think we're going to hear it at the lessons learned, and it's all about money. It's where do the resources go? And so when we have that money discussion, I think we ought to have everything on the table so we know what the consequence of doing one act or activity as opposed to another activity, and we can see the big picture. So whenever we have this discussion, I hope we have all of that together.
I think we can see why the staff put the asterisk on the agenda. So what I think we can do is direct staff to start working up some alternatives for funding, making some assumptions about what funding will likely be available for the next round. And I think you clearly have heard from council members that looking at SALC funding, looking at the potential funding early on for the 4 projects that have been identified as not being eligible because of the jurisdictional cap, and whatever else staff thinks is appropriate to think through some options. Also echoing Councilmember Goldberg, in order to perhaps limit some of the excursions on some of the comments, that we clearly are going to review the jurisdictional issue, and the flip side of that, which is to figure what is the most appropriate way to continue to ensure diversity of funding and projects. Is that, just looking at council members to see if there's any concern or objection about that? Okay. Okay, so do we have a motion to set this off for public comment? So the motion, I take it, is to the staff recommendation. Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second? I hear a second.
Yes. Clarity, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Clarity,
please.
this motion is on putting off the issue with the 4 projects? Or
No.
what's the motion on?
This is the motion for the staff recommendation for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program
The
grants.
grant proposals?
Yes.
So, yeah, second, if nobody else did.
You're the third. Okay, I'm guessing, oh, no comments. Well, that's good. Oh my God, okay. Okay, so I hope you have no dinner plans. All right, so we have quite a number of comments. Thank you for, this. You know, there are quite a few members from the SCAG board. I wonder if we could have maybe all of you come up first, and we'll make sure and give you an opportunity each to speak, but perhaps we can do this in a manner that is most efficient. Anybody else connected to SCAG who wants to make a comment? Aha.
You could see me over this, don't you?
Well, that's why you're first. That's right. Okay. Why don't we do this? Can we have everybody come up and introduce themselves, and then you can go first, and we'll have everybody else fill in as they see appropriate.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman Alex and members of this council. My name is Cheryl Villegas Walker. I'm the president of SCAG. I'm also a city councilwoman from the city of El Centro. Look up disadvantaged communities in the dictionary, and you're going to see Imperial County. We are one of 6 counties in the SCAG region, representing 18.5 million people. We have a number of members of the SCAG leadership team here, as well as staff, because we do take this very, very seriously. I personally am encouraged by the comments that we've heard from the council, and we very much look forward to the lessons learned workshops. In fact, Chairman Alex, I think I've had to revisit my entire comment sheet based on comments from staff as well as the council members. With that, I'd like to very quickly ask the members of the leadership team to introduce themselves.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Martinez, and I am the Vice President of the Southern California Association of Governments and also a council member in the city of Santa Ana. And I know one of our projects is recommended. And so I want to thank you all for that. But as well, I think we're just going to do introductions or...
Quick introductions.
Okay,
We'll come back.
great.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret Finley. I'm second vice president of SCAG, and I'm grateful to be here. And I forget who made the comment, but I think it might have been Gail. Boy, you all have put a lot of time and effort into this, and so I just want to thank you very much.
Could you say where you're from?
Give Duarte.
Right.
Oh, I'm Carl Morehouse. I'm a council member from the city of San Buenaventura. Most of you know us as Ventura, and I'm the immediate past president of SCAG, and I guess I'll follow on with the comments when we get there.
Hi there, I'm Gene Mirabito, also of SCAG, regional council member, and council member from the city of Glendora, but more importantly for today, the president of the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, which is part of the SCAG region. I too have a number of comments that I was going to make, but having heard council's comments, I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing. And I also want to thank staff for the tremendous job that they've done on this and making some tough decisions.
I'm Greg Pettis, Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Cathedral City and past President of SCAG. When President Villegas Walker's finished, I do have a few comments because I want to address a couple of things that I did hear from specific council members.
Thank you very much. I think that we were identified as the maybe MPO that you were going to be hearing from that was less than thrilled with the outcome, but I want to temper that remark a little bit. As long as it's good for California, it's good for California. And we truly do not see this as a competition. What we see this as an opportunity to maybe address some of the unintended consequences as a result of a just very complex set of competing priorities: affordable housing, greenhouse gas reductions, economic development that means a lot to disadvantaged communities. So there are a lot of competing priorities. I think for a first time out, not bad. And we all know that there's opportunities for improvement. So again, we look forward to that. Just very quickly, we did want to point out that the SCAG region, again, represents 191 cities, 6 counties, 18.5 million people. We also have the largest share of disadvantaged communities within the state of California. So when the initial recommendations came out, totaling only 22% of the overall awards, we went back and we took a very close look at the process and maybe how we could have done things a little bit differently, but we do encourage and support and advocate for the council to fully fund the 12 projects from the SCAG region. We also want to talk a little bit about one of the things that we need to address, and that is the leveraging of funds. I'm an elected city council member, but my day job is a banker. I understand leveraging capital, and I also understand that if you're a disadvantaged community, that's very, very difficult to do. And so I hope that, again, in the lessons learned, let's take a look at how do we use that as a rating tool, because it's just not going to happen, again, with regard to disadvantaged communities. We also want to emphasize the greenhouse gas reductions and the opportunities that MPOs like SCAG have to partner with the council in that regard. Our regional transportation plan, sustainable communities strategy, was unanimously adopted by our regional council, and it results upon full implementation of greenhouse gas reductions by reducing our emissions by 16% per capita by 2035. So again, a lot of competing priorities, a lot of really great outcomes, and I'm very encouraged by staff's recommendation and foresight in looking forward to the workshops. Now, the new person on the block is, here's my card. Because, again, we really do believe in the partnership opportunities here. And with that, I'd like to ask Michelle Martinez to come forward.
Thank you, Madam President. And I certainly concur with Cheryl's comments, and again, would like to thank all of you. I know that the decisions that you guys make are not easy, and certainly the hard work that your staff puts in to deliver this kind of product and making sure that there's a balanced approach. And I think, most of the comments that we heard today, I don't think that the SCAG region as an MPO is here today to, say, hey, you guys didn't take a look at us. You didn't, the process was not 100% equitable. I think just based on your comments here today, I think you guys tried. You and your staff really did make the attempt. One thing that I would mention is that there has to be a balanced approach between transportation and affordable housing. I'm probably one of the biggest proponents of affordable housing, specifically in the city of Santa Ana. One of the projects that's being recommended for Orange County is Santa Ana, and it's an affordable housing project that's near our transit. But what I also want to make mention, when you're dealing with disadvantaged communities and you're looking at public transportation, sometimes the infrastructure is not in place. It's not predictable, it's not reliable, and it's not affordable. So when we're addressing affordable housing and transportation, we need to make sure that when we're going to support an affordable housing project, that those things are aligned, because we need to make sure that, public transportation for those in disadvantaged communities is going to be predictable, reliable, and affordable. We're moving in that direction in the city of Santa Ana and across the state of California, because we understand the balance between housing, transportation, and jobs, economic development. So I just want to state to all of you is that, I'm here today, we all have full-time jobs. We're also elected officials, but we wanted to come here, one, today to thank you, but two, to also let you know that it's very important for us in the entire region. I just don't represent the city of Santa Ana. I represent 18.5 million people when I'm sitting at the regional level and wanting to make sure that the process is equitable and that there is a balanced approach. And with that being said, thank you.
Thank you. I hope they're bringing luncheon for all of you. Once again, I am Margaret Finley, and I'm a council member in the city of Duarte. But as Michelle said, more importantly, I do represent the 18+ million people in the Skag region. A few of you made comments. Ms. Caballero, I really liked your rural set-aside idea. I think that's great because, again, we don't want this to be a competition. Ms. Goldberg, you are just right on with the jurisdictional cap, but I won't talk about that right now. And Mr. Fisher, thank you. Just because we have the money doesn't mean we need to spend it. That's always kind of been my philosophy. We want to spend it on good projects. And Secretary Kelly, thank you for your comments with regard to this is not an adversarial relationship between the council and the MPOs. We need to work collaboratively. We all have the same ideas and same goals in this state. That being said, we really aren't here to castigate. We're here to promulgate and promote equity and parity in this state. And in our region, 1 out of 4 children lives below the poverty level, and we do still have the worst air in the nation. Now, I grew up in LA, and so I remember not being able to see the Whittier Hills from where I lived. I didn't even know they existed. So I know our air has improved, but we still have a long way to go. So given all of that, once again, I would just like to go ahead and say thank you for taking a look at this. You have an awesome responsibility put upon your shoulders, and it is going to impact the state of California for years to come. Thanks again.
I'll begin by going off script a little bit. As a 20-year employee of the County of Ventura in the Planning Department and a current LAFCO member, I want to appreciate your efforts with the SALC. Preserving ag land is very important. But I'll put on my more urban hat, and that is as immediate past president of SCAG. And it was under my signature that you received a rather scathing letter earlier in this year, and I appreciate your response to that. Mr. McCoy, thank you for your response to that, and good luck in your endeavors, and I understand why you want to take a vacation. But, of course, last year I had the opportunity of meeting with you, Chair Alex, along with the presidents and the CEOs of several other MPOs as you started down this path of trying to formulate this. And by the way, I do bring the regrets of Hassan Akrada, our executive director, today. He has a health family emergency that he had to address. But I do want to echo those comments of my colleagues, which, by the way, if you were not noting, that was president, first and second vice president, all female. I am the last of the old white guys for quite a while. So quite a step forward in terms of SCAG and the leadership. But their comments are all spot on, and those concerns that came out under my signature letter in March. The most important is the cleanup hitter here is to really, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I appreciate Councilmember Goldberg raising the issue with regards to the caps. I'm guessing you're very familiar with those 3 projects in LA from your time there that scored very well, and had it not been for the caps, that those would be there. So I do appreciate the remarks of all the council members I've heard so far, Councilmember Kelly and Caballero also raising those very issues. That to eliminate the cap or to relook at that in the future would be very important. I understand the daunting task you have. I spent, like as I said, 20 years as a staff member trying to write stuff, and I watched my own city staff as a council member struggle. You can see the representation here in the SCAG region as reflected in the numbers, but quite honestly, I mean, El Centro is one end, Ventura is the other. We've got Santa Ana from Orange County and Duarte from LA County. You can see the diversity in our own area. And again, the fact that we have a fair number of disadvantaged communities and we represent almost half the population of the state, that we're still concerned with the distribution of the funds. So we will hope that you will take into consideration the challenge of your new director will be to figure out how to deal with the formula, try to eliminate the cap where you can, and again, get the projects that you're after to achieve the very things you're after. And so with that, I thank you for your time and good luck with your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Greg Pettis, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Cathedral City and past president of SCAG. I want to speak a little bit differently to the cap reduction. And while I agree that the cap needs to be raised, I do have a difference of opinion in that it should not be raised in only the top 5 or 6 or 7 cities in population in the state of California receive funding. There's a great deal of need, and smaller communities desperately need these funds. You know, I appreciate the staff has a project in the city of Riverside, but I see tremendous need in Redlands, in Calexico, in El Centro, throughout the Imperial County, throughout Riverside County, in Coachella, whether it's for farm workers or hotel workers. And those are the kinds of needs that are really there. Union Station is not going to be the be-all and end-all of what happens for Southern California. We have to look at the entire region. As was mentioned by Councilwoman Finley, 25% of the population in Southern California is living in poverty. Imperial County, even in the uptick in the economy, still has over 20% unemployment, and that's year-round unemployment, regardless of what the farm workers are doing and what's going on in agriculture there. We don't have access to transit and should not be penalized because Metrolink hasn't built out into our area yet. We have to deal with housing. We have to deal with ways that our people are going to be able to get to transit, but at the same time be able to live in clean, affordable housing so that they're not going to be left behind. And this is one of those programs that we are counting on to make sure that that happens. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for having us here. My name is Gene Marabito, and as I said before, I'm council member from the city of Glendora and president of the San Gabriel Valley COG, which is in the SCAG region, a region that has over half the population of the state of California, and as was said earlier, 67% of the disadvantaged communities come from our SCAG region. And I think to realize the intent of this program, it's critical that the number of projects in SCAG in San Gabriel Valley region has to increase. The funds should be awarded based on where the projects will have the biggest benefit for the state, and we believe SCAG and my San Gabriel Valley should obtain the funding for these very needed projects. Today, I come before you as my fellow SCAG members to encourage the support of all 12 of our projects that were submitted. I recognize that not all projects can be approved and funded, but I'm concerned that the results may indicate, as we've heard, a lack of clarity in the guidelines and the application process, and certainly the application of the jurisdictional cap when you consider that 3 of the 4 projects are from the SCAG region. So I am encouraged to hear the discussion regarding the cap and also the workshops afterwards to think about the guidelines and to improve the process going forward. So I want to thank you for the time today and for the tough decisions that you all have to make.
Hi there, I'm Denny Zane, and while I'm not a SCAG Regional Council member, I regularly appear before SCAG, and I think I'm maybe the only NGO here from the SCAG region, so to put my remarks in context, I thought I'd follow upon them. First of all, I'd like to tell you that I think you're very lucky, you're very fortunate people to be in the position that you're in to do such extraordinary good for our communities, frankly for our planet, because we know that here in California what we are actually creating is not simply a strategy for our own health, but rather a model for the health of our planet. And it's really very, very important that we learn to do it right, do it well, but also expeditiously. I thought that you did, on this first round, a remarkably good effort in most respects. In the ways that I think it was weak, you've heard from. And they have to do with struggling with the issues of how to make sure there is equity around our state. I understand that the cap, the jurisdictional cap, was intended to be a tool for geographic equity. I think it was clearly not as effective a tool as you anticipated. And we need to relook at that. I also think that you need to approach this with a sense of appreciation for the truly transformational opportunity that is occurring in Southern California. Los Angeles County certainly recently having voted for a major investment in new transit systems throughout the county, and I think likely to do so again in 2016 is a remarkable set of opportunities for partnership and greenhouse gas reductions in the context of a major economic development strategy. And I think that should be on your mind. You should be looking at that as an opportunity. But Southern California as a whole, the SCAG region as a whole, is really, I think, rife with this transformational spirit and this opportunity. And if you play your cards right, you will find extraordinary partnerships and opportunities there, and extraordinary progress will be made. So we're looking forward to a partnership, really a serious partnership, going forward between both the SCAG agency itself and its members, but also the NGO community that works hard to try to advance this agenda from the grassroots. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Nancy Pfeffer. I'm Director of Regional Planning for the Gateway Cities Council of Governments. We're a subregion of SCAG, and I'm here today with the SCAG delegation. The Gateway Cities are 27 cities in Southeast LA County with a population of 2 million residents. We're home to the Port of Long Beach, the 710 Freeway, and the Gerald Desmond Bridge, and neighbor to the Port of LA. A very large portion of the nation's goods traverse through our region. The Gateway Cities are also home to the greatest concentration of disadvantaged communities in the state. 3/4 of our residents live in census tracts that are designated as disadvantaged by Cal and Viruscreen. The Gateway Cities have a 20-year history of successful collaborative planning. In 2011, we completed our own sub-regional sustainable community strategy under SB 375, which was funded through a special assessment on our member cities. We're currently developing a comprehensive long-range strategic transportation plan that looks at all modes of travel, including freeways, arterials, transit, active transportation, freight movement, and technology. On the basis of this planning, the Gateway Cities are ready to partner with you and other funding agencies to develop a multi-year program of projects that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions while also improving mobility and quality of life for our residents and communities. We agree that the grant criteria should be amended to reflect the diversity of solutions to the problems of urban planning. The funds should be made equally available to transportation projects as to housing, and much more needs to be done to ensure that the funds reach all disadvantaged communities in need. For example, there's a great potential benefit from providing technical assistance to these communities. The heavy emphasis on leverage, as you heard, inherently disadvantages our communities and those like ours. This is my second trip to Sacramento regarding the opportunity that is cap and trade, and my message has been the same as it is today. Please make it possible and fair for all disadvantaged communities to access and benefit from these funds. Thank you very much for your hard work on this challenging program.
Thank you, Chair and Council. Mark Bozza, Executive Director of Imperial County Transportation Commission. We are also the Regional Transit Agency for Imperial County. As our Council Member Cheryl Villegas-Walker mentioned, leveraging funds is a challenge for us. We do leverage all of our funding that we have available to us from Federal Transit Administration funds as well as state TDA funds. And we try to make as much out of our transit system as possible, but we were challenged to consider applying for the first round, and we're hopeful for others opportunities. We are supporting the California Van Pool Authority's project as we are part of a member agency of California Van Pool Authority and their work to provide van pools for our region. We appreciate all of the work you and the council as well as staff and your efforts, and thank you for hearing us out in the Skag region.
Thank you very much. I grew up in Long Beach, so I do appreciate that things have changed somewhat in Southern California, and Skag gets a huge amount of credit for that. So a little ode to Skag and the incredible diversity of that region. It clearly have some of the same challenges that this council does. So I want to thank you for your comments. We recognize the issues that you've raised, and we're committed to working on them. I will note that in our budget that the governor signed last week, that we look to have funding for an outreach person for disadvantaged communities. And so we will look to fill that and sort of improve our ability to work directly with disadvantaged communities and working through the grant process, among other things. Okay, so we have another group set of commenters from the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition. And so if I can ask that group to come up as well, we can go through their comments as a group as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Jeannie Wardwaller. I'm with the California Bicycle Coalition and also one of the members of the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition that is extremely supportive of this effort and this program. I'm here in support today of the staff recommendation, and I also want to thank all of you for this program, thank the staff for all their hard work in tackling this very ambitious goal to really try to transform our built environment. I also want to appreciate that as soon as the awards were posted, staff also scheduled workshops to start talking about the next round and diving into improvements that need to be made, and I think that's just really commendable. I want to highlight on a high level, really focus on the active transportation aspect of this program really ultimately to support the statutory goals of the program, which are to improve public health, improve connectivity to all needs and services, not just connections between housing and transit, and realize those benefits for the whole community. And then there's also a specific goal around supporting implementation of the active transportation program, which I've worked really very much on over the last couple of years. The ATP has incentivized a huge amount of planning and public engagement and project development that can be leveraged in this program, and it's hugely oversubscribed. There's over $2 billion in the last 2 years that have been requested from that program, which is fairly small. So I think there's a few people have said it, but I want to highlight also that we'd like to see more information about what is specifically getting funded, and that would be helpful on the active transportation side. There wasn't a lot of detail in the staff report about those aspects of these projects, and we're supportive again, but we would like to see more transparency in that aspect. I think in terms of supporting the goal, we would like to also see more emphasis on co-benefits like public health in the next round and in the scoring. And finally, I'll just wrap up and say that I think there needs to be some work done on the modeling and the greenhouse gas accounting in terms of quantifying those benefits of improving walking and biking in these areas. So thank you again for your work and look forward to the next round.
Thanks, all of you. I'm Megan Kirkby, Policy Director for California Housing Partnership. I'll echo all of Jeannie's comments as a fellow member of Sustainable Communities for All, especially around the integration piece. I think that that's something we really look forward to working on in the coming and energy efficiency greenhouse gas benefits were not counted in the first year. So those are additional savings that are probably part of these projects that we're not taking a look at. And it'll be important to credit those things if we want to see them going forward. I also want to say that I think there are lots of ways we can see geographic diversity grow in this program without things like caps. I think there's a lot of research we'll talk more about in the workshops that point to rural smart growth opportunities that weren't captured in the current modeling, but really could see big VMT reductions outside of urban centers. And finally, another comment to on Public Member Fisher's question about the ranking is I do think we should be talking about there being a GHG reduction threshold for these projects. But I will say I don't think that you can say that a project was good or bad based on that percentage. And this is another reason we need more transparency, is because a project could have a lower percentage because it asked for more funding, but might be a very, very strong greenhouse gas reducing project. And further, because of the way that that scoring is laid out, it's on a curve. So you go from 55 points to 44 points to 33 points. Even if they were all great greenhouse gas reducing projects, it's just based on quintiles. So I think we should be talking about a greenhouse gas reduction threshold, but we might not be able to tell that from the information we have right in front of the council today. So thank you all for your time.
Hi, I'm Erica Rincon with PolicyLink. We want to commend the board and the staff for all of your hard work in the development of this program and really appreciate the opportunity to have been able to weigh in on the development of this program. I'd like to echo comments placed by California Bike Coalition and Housing California. We are here today to strongly advocate for full public disclosure of the applications to really allow for better public assessment and evaluation of why projects, some applications were successful versus others, and would like to second comments made by Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. This will increase access to the program in the future for other disadvantaged communities that were not successful in this round. We also hope that in the future, this program can better serve and benefit small rural disadvantaged communities in the Central Valley. We do understand it is a guidelines and a local issue, and we look forward to addressing this with the council in the go forward. And finally, we encourage better modeling tools to quantify active transportation benefits as an important strategy to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and connecting our most disadvantaged communities to critical amenities and assessments. And would just like to echo comments put forth today by Sustainable Communities for All Coalition and the Coalition for Active Transportation Leadership. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Krista Cassidy with the Nature Conservancy. And as I mentioned in my earlier comments, we are a member of Sustainable Communities for All, Climate Plan, and the Natural and Working Lands Coalition, all of which are dedicated to ensure that the programs funded by Cap and Treat auction proceeds, including the programs administered by the Strategic Growth Council, support an integrated, multi-sector, and comprehensive approach that optimizes greenhouse gas emissions, supports a sustainable and equitable California, provides multiple benefits, and is consistent with state policy. We support this program and commend the Council for moving rapidly to launch it. The projects awarded today will make a real difference in our communities and in reducing GHG emissions. Looking at the award list, however, we saw concerns realized that we would like to be addressed before the next round of funding. For example, we note that while there was support to integrate green or natural infrastructure into the program so that the projects awarded could incorporate solutions that reduce GHGs and provide multiple benefits, very few capitalized on that opportunity in a significant way. By green or natural infrastructure, we mean using vegetation, soils, and natural processes through evaporation, filtration, carbon sequestration, reuse, and runoff to help create healthier environments through land and water management. It refers to the patchwork of natural and working lands that provide habitat, flood protection, cleaner air, cleaner water, as well as low-impact design and stormwater management systems that mimic nature by soaking up and storing water. To that end, we would like to see the guidelines incentivize green or natural infrastructure and the climate benefits accrued through a formula or point system to provide more weight for GHG reductions and associated public benefits. The Cali Mod program is insufficient to account for the GHG benefits associated with green or natural infrastructure, and likewise, we better support integration of and incentives for active transportation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chanel Fletcher, and I represent Safe Routes to School National Partnership. We work with the parents, school districts, and community partners to advance safe walking and bicycling to and from schools and create livable, sustainable communities for all. We are a newly adopted part of the Sustainable Communities for All, and we're also a part of the Coalition for Active Transportation and Living. So first and foremost, I really want to thank you, the council members and the staff, for your leadership and hard work on the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. You listened to us and took on the task of building a very ambitious program to transform our communities. As Safe Routes to School, we hope to continue to partner with you to see it become a model for future funding programs. As all of you know, active transportation remains a huge need in sustainable communities. There is the Active Transportation Program, which has invested and spurred a significant amount of both planning and public engagement in the community, but more is needed. So we believe that for the benefits of this program to fully come to pass, we really need a greater transparency to fully understand how transit, walking, biking, urban forestry, green space, and conservation are integrated into the projects. Specifically, we recommend actions such as posting all the applications online and really providing a detailed breakdown of the HSC spending per project so we can really understand how and where the money is going. We are working right now with staff, and they have been great and so far in partnership, but I think for the next round, we really hope to see that more transparency. One of the statutes of the HSC is to increase options for mobility, including the implementation of the Active Transportation Program. So in addition, we really ask that you better leverage the planning and public engagement from the ATP and integrate that into projects to really connect and build an active transportation network. So thank you again for the opportunity to provide comments. We look forward to partnering with you to implement these recommendations.
So on the transparency point, so we can maybe cut through some hearing the same comment, we're working on it. There are some sensitive financial information involved, and we'll figure out how to do that. We are intending on publishing more information about it, but we have to figure out how to do it well.
Great, thank you so much.
Hi there, I'm Tony Dang with California Walks and a member of the Coalition for Active Transportation Leadership. And first, again, I just want to thank the council and staff for working with us to make sure that active transportation really is a part of this program. And unfortunately, you know, as we saw in the awards and in the high-level descriptions, active transportation honestly isn't being funded through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in general and through this program in particular. And I think one of the biggest culprits for this is really around the modeling. We don't really have great modeling around, you know, what are the greenhouse gas reduction benefits when you invest in complete and robust walking and biking networks. So I highly encourage the council to really put that concept forward in this next round and really help move this program beyond simply connecting housing to transit and really moving us towards connected communities to really take advantage of the mode shift potential of the short trips that make up over 50% of trips in California. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Hershey. I'm with Housing California, and my partner here, Denny, and I are going to sum up kind of what you heard from the Sustainable Communities for All Coalition. As you've noted, we're actually a coalition of 9 different organizations from many different sectors: natural resources, transportation, active transportation, housing. We're very much about doing implementation, advancing an implementation through an equity lens. And so you've seen the diversity of our partners, as well as our alliances with the Rural Smart Growth Task Force, the 535 Coalition. Move LA is a key part of our membership. Denny's offered to not speak again because you already heard from him. So he's the pretty face up here with us today. In closing, and thank you for already recognizing our point about transparency. We've already talked and you've heard a lot about geographic distribution and equity. We appreciate that. Our third point is really around integration. And as you can see from our coalition and our deepening of alliances, this really matters to us. We really honor and respect Strategic Growth Council for your intention, what's put forward in statute, but really trying to live that through through how your staff does incredible work together and how you engage community in doing this most powerfully. And then lastly, we do recognize the importance of coordination with the regional transportation entities. We very much look forward to deeper conversations with the MPOs, with CalCog, and with other partners in advancing this in a way that makes sense from all the different sectors' perspectives so we can best serve our communities across the state of California. Lastly, I just really want to acknowledge staff. I think they've done a phenomenal job. I was inside government, state and local, for 20 years before I went outside to be an advocate. So I thoroughly and fully appreciate the challenge of all of you, of the council's work and of staff's work, and just want to thank you on behalf of all the communities across California. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have quite a number of additional commenters. We're going to start potentially losing some council members, so let me reiterate my request, as people have done very well. Thank you for that, to keep the comments fairly brief. So next is Alex Bockelman, followed by Anna Slaby.
Good afternoon, Chair Alex and council members. My name is Alex Bockelman. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Policy with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. MTC is obviously very thankful for the AHSC program and the opportunity it provides to address the significant affordable housing needs that we have in our region, as well as the complementary transportation investments. As many of you probably know, the Bay Area is home to the highest home prices with a median price of over $600,000. We very much appreciate the proposed awards to projects in the Bay Area. The 11 projects proposed for funding by this council are in strong alignment with the recommendations that were forwarded to you for consideration by our commission. The projects would build 776 units of affordable housing, would support our sustainable community strategy by locating people near robust transit networks, and would generate nearly 190,000 metric tons of GHG reductions. We definitely appreciate the outreach and partnership of the SGC and HCD staff in this initial funding round. We definitely support the comments about trying to strengthen the partnership with MPOs going forward in future rounds. And just, I would echo, the comments that were made by others, just to really revisit the jurisdictional cap. So I definitely want to stand in solidarity with our Southern California colleagues on that. And you've talked a lot about that. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in future rounds.
Thank you. Anna Slaby, followed by Ezra Rapport.
Good afternoon, Board, Chair and Committee. I appreciate your this opportunity to speak. I'm Anna Slaby. I'm with Bridge Housing, and I'm here representing Jordan Downs and speaking on behalf of the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles and the Michaels Development Organization. So in the interest of brevity, talking points go away. I want to express our gratitude for all of the hard work that has gone into the consideration of these allocations, and even more deeply express our appreciation that we will be going forward with the proposal based on the next funding allocation. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Ezra Rapport, followed by Daniel Falcon.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ezra Rapport. I'm the Executive Director of the Association of Bay Area Governments. We've been conferred with Land Use Planning Authority under SB 375. And we were very impressed by the way the application process was designed and the speed in which it took place. Obviously, this can't be a program for everybody. It's limited by law in terms of defending the cap and trade program while trying to achieve objectives. My one comment that I want to add is that we view the integration of this Strategic Growth Council and SB 375 as companions. They were passed at the same time. They were intended to be mutually self-reinforcing. And you can thank Secretary Kelly and Senator Steinberg for that. SB 375 is limited in terms of how far it goes, and I would suggest that you think about adding more of the state's objectives into SB 375 so it better aligns with this cap funding source of cap and trade. There are more resources that need to be studied beyond just the integration of land use and transportation. So we think that are more robust sustainable community strategy that incorporates the integration of natural resources and the reduction of cap and trade, a reduction of greenhouse gases beyond that from transportation, but inclusive of how infill impacts greenhouse gas reductions through its appropriate management of natural resources, would provide a better frame for how cap and trade funds that program. And that would put the regions into the position of responsibility of doing more work on terms of meeting AB 32 and the other goals that this Strategic Council has than they currently have. And I think it would impose more discipline into the overall program of specifically delineating how the land use component is divided up in what we've done with priority development areas that have already been passed by resolution by the Land Use Authority to actually provide specifics as to how the land use and transportation integrate, but also incorporate the other natural resource savings and greenhouse gas savings. So thank you very much for your work, and it's really exciting and gratifying to see this council coming together and doing this.
Thank you. So Daniel Falcon, followed by Alex Gibbs.
Yes, Daniel Falcone with McCormick Baron Salazar. It's close enough.
I didn't see the accent mark.
That's okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak and fully support the recommendation going forward. As part of that process, and I'll be brief given the hour of the day, I'd recognize staff and all their good work. And the best way I can put it is for those friends, I'm a housing person, those friends on the environmental side said this is a crazy housing program. Those of us on the housing side, this is a crazy environmental program. So you probably did the right thing and found it somewhere in the middle that each of us could complain about. So I thank staff, all their hard work and bringing it forward, especially as been commented from a 0 point to 100 miles an hour. So we appreciate that. I would like to also support consideration for augmenting the request to those 4 projects that scored very well enough to be considered future funding. But I would say you supplement that consideration for those projects in the same jurisdiction that were shortchanged, if you will, and had reductions in their requests because they were last up, if you will. So you don't create an inadvertent negative impact to those projects by reducing and then leapfrogging it to the next projects behind them. So with that, I ask for your support to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alex Gibbs, followed by Holly Benson.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the Strategic Growth Council. My name is Alex Gibbs here on behalf of the City of South San Francisco. First off, I'd like to thank all staff for their hard work and efforts on this first round of very valuable funding. On behalf of the City of South San Francisco, we submitted an application that would connect our affordable housing on the west side of the city with Caltrain on the east side of town. Your staff was fantastic to work with, and whereas we're disappointed that we did not get recommended for funding, we look forward to resubmitting in round 2 and are hopeful that the outcome will be different. In closing, I'd like to thank your staff for the support through this process. We look forward to getting feedback on how to make our applications stronger, and we'll continue to be an active participant in workshops and other opportunities to submit feedback and work with you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Holly Benson, followed by Michael Pimentel.
Good afternoon, Holly Benson, Abode Communities. I'm thrilled at Commission's direction to staff to fund the 4 projects that received scores high enough to be awarded but for the cap. I represent one of those projects, Roland Curtis Gardens East. We are thrilled. I will happily work with staff to see that commitment happens and as soon as possible. And I'd also like to support the previous comment that to the extent that some projects will only receive partial funding due to the cap, that those projects also be considered just in fairness. Thank you.
So just to be clear, the direction to the staff was to evaluate it, not to, we need to see where we are in terms of what the next round of funding will be.
Absolutely understand that, and I'm happy to participate in that evaluation.
Thank you. Michael Pimentel, followed by Michael Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman Alex and council members, Michael Pimentel here on behalf of the City of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. You likely received within your council documents a joint letter by Mayor Garcetti as well as San Francisco Mayor Edwin Lee regarding the jurisdictional cap. I'd just like to reiterate some of the concerns raised in that letter by reading for the record from what I promise is a very brief separate letter from Mayor Garcetti. So it reads, Dear Mr. Alex, I write to urge the Strategic Growth Council to exercise its authority and waive the $15 million per local jurisdiction cap when it considers the 2014-15 Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Awards. This week, the AHSC issued its fiscal year 2014-15 funding recommendations for the SGC's consideration. Unfortunately, the recommendations exclude funding for the highest scoring programs for reducing greenhouse gas emissions because of the self-imposed restriction. This cap runs counter to the guiding principles of AB 32 and SB 535 and severely limits the effectiveness of the state's efforts to reduce greenhouse gases, which is the central premise of the state's cap and trade program. The cap also unfairly discriminates against some of the state's neediest residents based on where they live. If the cap remains in place, the city of Los Angeles, which contains 26% of California's disadvantaged communities, would be limited to receiving only 12% of available funds. Prioritizing funding for disadvantaged communities is also required by SB 535. The AHSC guidelines allow the SGC to waive this cap. Doing so will help ensure the most effective allocation of state funds to reduce greenhouse gases and keep disadvantaged communities at the front of the line. For these reasons, I strongly urge that this cap be waived and funding be awarded based on overall score. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Walsh, followed by Jeff White.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Walsh. I'm with the Coachella Valley Housing Coalition. We were fortunate enough to be recommended for the March Veterans Village project on the March Air Force Base, which is going to benefit 138 veterans and their families. And we applaud staff for all their work. Every time I would ask a question to staff, it always can conclude, it's like, I'm sorry, you guys are doing such a good job. This program is very difficult, and you guys did a great job at making it work. The one thing I wanted to bring to the council's attention is our history was the development of farm worker housing in the more eastern part of the Riverside County, which is 90 miles from where this Riverside project is, which is the equivalent of going from Sacramento to where my parents live in San Leandro. So it's a completely different general dynamic and have different needs. And when first off, it's like we're looking at the definition of disadvantaged communities. It's only being defined under Cal and Biro screen, which does not necessarily capture all of the disadvantages that a lot of the communities, especially in rural communities, are dealing with that would for the promotion of reduction of greenhouse gases. One thing in a basic threshold for a lot of our rural communities is in terms of density, because density is just strictly surrounded units per acre, but there's no consideration for bedrooms per acre or families. So this is it's hurting for more family developments that we proposed. A more like large density is for single homeless individuals works, but if we're talking about families, they need 2, 3, 4 bedrooms. It's harder to make those works because of all the parking requirements, all those things that come along with it. What I found interesting in being here for the presentation was the SALT program and the reserving of agricultural lands, and but someone works those agricultural lands. And so how do we place the jobs housing balance for our farm workers? Some consideration of like a rural set aside is something that we've advocated early on in this program, so it benefits more of throughout the state. This is, even though this provides geographical distribution, our project to Inland Empire, it's not, we don't consider it a rural project. Rural projects have more, like you can see trees and those, those sort of things around it. But that's, I just want to bring that. We applaud staff. This is a great first effort. So I think some tweaks to the program to allow for greater geographic diversity, also for greater tracking metrics is key for the program's success going forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Jeff White, followed by Ella Wise.
Good afternoon. I'm the Housing Program Manager at the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure of the City of San Francisco. The City of San Francisco is grateful for the $15 million recommendation for funding for the 2 critical projects and requests final approval from the Council today. The financial support from the state for inclusive, sustainable, and transit-oriented housing projects is crucial in San Francisco and can play a key role in reducing greenhouse gases, and is a very effective use of cap-and-trade funding. San Francisco is disappointed that one of the state's highest scoring projects, 222 Beale, one of the four that have been discussed in San Francisco, was removed from consideration due to the jurisdictional cap. If the goal of the AHSC program is to lower greenhouse gases, support thoughtful developments, and bolster disadvantaged communities statewide, we think that the SGC should consider projects based on merit and not on geographical location. Thank you.
That's a little harsh, but thank you. Ella Wise, followed by Alicia Klein.
Good afternoon now. I'm Ella Wise from the Natural Resources Defense Council. I wanted to thank the chairman, council members, staff, and everyone else involved in this amazing process. It's been a tight timeline, and we have some really exciting projects that reduce GHGs, achieve co-benefits, and benefit disadvantaged communities. But we also have many lessons learned, and I appreciate that the staff has kicked off this several-month process of revisiting and revising the guidelines with a set of workshops. Thank you. We want to make sure that these guidelines allow, as we move forward, allow us to use all the tools in the toolbox granted to the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Community Program by statute, including strong transportation-related infrastructure that increases job and housing accessibility at a community-wide level, which some of the previous speakers had mentioned. And we also appreciate the discussion about enhanced partnership between the regions and the state, which is necessary for successful transformative projects that integrate transportation and housing strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Klein, followed by Katie Lamont.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Alicia Klein with Resources for Community Development, and I want to echo the gratitude for the collaboration of among agencies and staff for creating the program and enabling affordable housing to shine and demonstrate the ability of affordable transit-oriented housing to fight climate change. And we're looking forward to collaborating across sectors to help refine the program to further meet policy goals. And also want to just point out how essential the AHSC funds are going to be for the Riviera family apartments in Walnut Creek to bring affordable family housing right downtown in Walnut Creek next to the jobs where people can now walk to, as opposed to being priced out of the Bay Area housing market. And thank you again, and we're delighted to be recommended.
Thank you. Katie Lamont, followed by Holly Wunderstiles.
Hi, my name is Katie Lamont. I'm the Director of Housing Development with TNDC, which is based in San Francisco. And I also worked many years for Eden Housing, which works throughout the Greater Bay Area, serving suburban and exurban and rural communities. And I know it's been a long day, and I just wanted to take the opportunity, since I came all the way to Sacramento, to thank you all personally and directly for all the hard work you as a council and the staff of the many state agencies have done to put this program together. It's been really rewarding to be in the same room with folks that are working on issues that are so important to all of us individually in our lives, and certainly to the people that we serve, both housing, transportation, access to jobs, healthy, green, open spaces, healthy food choices. And so I know it's been a big, complicated undertaking, and I think the fruit of all of this dialogue is already paying off in people who really are, many of us were really working to serve the same people in different ways, and to have us coordinate that effort more directly, I think is going to really lead to tremendous things above and beyond reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So thank you for all your work on the program. I'm excited to see where it goes. I think it really is going to continue to have an impact. I mean, it's about to and will continue to have an impact on land use decisions that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions, help people spend less time in their cars and more time at home and in the outdoors. And be closer to jobs. And then I would be remiss not to thank you personally and directly for supporting our Eddie and Taylor development, which has been in the works for almost 10 years, and it is just an incredible day for us at TNDC and for the folks that we serve to finally, predict a construction start date. This is really incredible. And the last comment I would make is being someone who now lives and works in a city but has also lived and worked in the suburbs, I really, and I haven't lived in rural areas, but I do understand and appreciate the importance of making sure that the funds are spread to all of the different kinds of communities throughout the state. I think that's really important for all of us, that this program is widely supported, that every legislator feels like there's an opportunity for these funds to reach their community, because it's such a tremendous amount of money and we've got to hang on to it. We can't lose it. So I do appreciate the importance of managing that aspect of the program design, and I recognize it's not an easy task. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. Holly Wonder-Stiles.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm the Director of Housing Development for Mutual Housing California, and I would like to offer our congratulations to the Council and the staff for their success in this first round of funding and for the geographical diversity that's been achieved so far. We would like to join the voices of those who are urging you not to lose sight of the greater geographical diversity that still could be accomplished. And specifically, we're looking for the Council to give serious consideration to a rural set-aside. And in making that suggestion, we would like to make the case that the Council could support the transformative potential of this program by expanding the measurement of greenhouse gas reductions to include energy efficiency and energy production. And I think that by doing so, it will assist the program in reaching rural areas that don't have the transit amenities that some of the projects funded today can demonstrate. And we believe that the greenhouse gas reduction potential of energy efficiency and energy production can be demonstrated and measured and quantified in ways by either expanding the Cal-EE mod model, the part of it that was not activated for this program, or by alternative methods. And we look forward to further conversation about this as we enter into the lessons learned phase of this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll have that discussion. Did I miss anyone? I'm not going to look too hard, but apparently we have one more.
Hello, my name is Maya Aboud with California Coalition for Rural Housing. I am going to echo the statements of many of those that have come before me and say that we are very pleased with some of the results, particularly 2 projects that were funded in rural California, the Truckee Affordable Housing Development and the Van Pool out of Hanford. We will say that we have continued reservations about the ability of rural communities to compete in this program. And we are unsure if many rural projects will be successful at getting funded. The Truckee project had 80 units per acre, which for rural California is an extreme anomaly, and helped them to be able to achieve the greenhouse gas reduction number that was so competitive. The other factors that we think may prevent rural communities from receiving funding are the unit density, which I mentioned, the job density that's part of that greenhouse gas calculations, and the proximity to transit. We join the voices of many others in saying that we need a rural set-aside in order to ensure geographic apportionment. We know that these projects can be transformative, can be catalytic, and we want to make sure that our farm worker communities, our Native American tribal communities, and our other rural communities are able to have the same kind of access to this unprecedented level of funding for healthy, sustainable, and economic growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Frisch. I'm with the Sierra Business Council. And first, I want to say thank you to all of you, to the staff, to everyone for the work that you've done. It truly is remarkable, and it's a really hard job, I can tell. I think you're going to need more time in your workshops. Which and then I also think that we should take just a minute to remember what we did here, what you guys are at the beginning of. California priced carbon, and we're actually investing the proceeds in changing behavior over the next 20 to 40 years in order to meet a global goal. That's a pretty remarkable thing, and it's groundbreaking, and I think really important for the rest of the country to see California doing what it's doing. So thank you for that. I, of course, am also thrilled that because our organization is based in Truckee, represents 4,000 small and medium-sized businesses across the 14-county region, but our home office is in Truckee, California, thrilled that the Truckee project was accepted, would echo the previous commenter that the Truckee project actually in many ways was an anomaly because of a visionary community that put high-density development immediately adjacent to its downtown, and a visionary developer who came in and was willing to do that at great cost and taking quite a bit of time to do it. So this issue that we really need to look at some ongoing mechanism to meet our goals over 20 to 40 years to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while getting regional equity, I think is very, very important. And I couldn't agree with you more, Secretary Caballero, that it needs to be incorporated into the deep thinking for the next rounds of the project. There are 4 million Californians who live in regions not represented by metropolitan planning organizations, the entire fishhook of the northern tier of counties of the state, and most of the Sierra Nevada region. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. Many of those communities don't show up on the disadvantaged community score because they don't have the population densities or because we're measuring certain indicators by census block instead of census tract. So we need to look at the question of, are we really reaching disadvantaged people who are really the target of many of these programs? And then finally, I would say that I think one of the ongoing issues is going to be getting some mechanism for really looking at incorporating energy objectives and integrating all of the greenhouse gas reduction funded programs towards a single set of objectives. So it isn't just the Sustainable Agricultural Land Conservation Program and the housing. All of these programs need to be looked at from an integrated perspective to see how, for example, the forestry programs or the transportation programs help the housing program and the water savings program. So onward. Thank you.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm kind of thinking about the degree of difficulty, and I'm sure the staff will appreciate the challenge.
Good afternoon, Chairman Alex and members of the council. My name is Troy Hightower, and I'm from Kern Council of Government. And I did want to raise some concerns about the discussion about the cap and the geographic distribution. But before I do that, I just want to commend SGC and their staff, and based on Secretary Kelly's earlier comments about the relationship, I know personally our relationship is very good with Mike McCoy and Allison Joy and Susan Haig. They've been very responsive to any of the questions and concerns. But to my point is, when you're looking at alternatives for ranking, we would like for you to consider the co-benefits. For example, with the Cal Environmental Screen, disadvantaged communities. My understanding in the current guidelines, it's only whether the project is in those areas or adjacent to or would benefit. And I'd like you to consider the percentile ranking, which was not part of the evaluation in the current cycle. So as you may know, San Joaquin Valley, the Central Valley has some of the worst air in the state and the nation. And so I think our projects, and one is on your list, it's adjacent to green space, the Mill Creek project. It's 3 blocks from Amtrak and the proposed high-speed rail station. But the air quality and co-benefits, namely health, childhood, asthma, the benefits in that particular region, I think if there's a way that those could be added to the evaluation would be very good. And with that, I would urge the council to approve staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Council members, comments? We've worn them down. Yes, please, Councilmember Goldberg.
Thank you. And this doesn't have to do with the guidelines, I don't think. One of the things that kept coming up in my community, and I heard it here a bit, is the issue of technical assistance and how we begin to help the smaller communities who are really struggling with the application. And I don't think we have to wait to maybe begin to think about how we can develop a program to really start providing that kind of technical assistance. That's it.
Okay. Other comments? All right, then I'll make a quick comment and then we can get to the motion. I think the staff heard from many, if not almost all speakers, really well-deserved recognition for their efforts. Even from people whose projects were not approved recognized the efforts and the responsiveness of staff. And so I just want to really thank you all for that. I've seen it firsthand, so congratulations on that. We take very seriously the comments that are made about how we can improve this program. We're going to hear more over the next month, and this will be an ongoing effort, and I'm sure all of you will be part of that. So with that, we have a motion pending. Just checking any further comments. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it passes unanimously, $122 million. Thank you very much. Everybody's going to leave, but there actually are 3 more comments that are under item 8, general public comments. So if you are still here and still wish to comment, Catherine Boxer, Keisha Bulware, and Brian D'Andrea. Catherine, you're first. All right, no Catherine. Keisha Bulware. Okay. Brian D'Andrea, you're the man.
Good afternoon, Chair Alex, council members, and state staff. My name is Brian D'Andrea, and I'm Senior Vice President at Century Housing. As many of you may know, Century is a lender to affordable housing developers throughout the state. We also are a developer of affordable housing, largely in Southern California, perhaps best known for our Villages at Cabrillo community in Long Beach. The Villages was formerly a naval housing site tied to the shipyards. It's now home to more than 1,000 formerly homeless family members and individuals, including a population of more than 550 veterans. It's a very special community that's aimed at restoring health and hope and wellness amongst some of our community's most vulnerable populations. We operate through collaboration, much like the collaboration I think we've all witnessed here today and over the prior year. We have more than 20 different nonprofit and government agencies that have a role and play a hand in doing what we do at the Villages. And on behalf of that whole collaboration, we'd like to sincerely thank the Growth Council and state staff for approving the HSC funding for our Anchor Place development. Beyond aspiring to end veteran homelessness in Long Beach, the Anchor Place development will help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also will dramatically improve the transit connectivity of our project, which is a bit isolated, although we do have transit lines close to us, and we're hoping to enhance all that access for our 1,000 residents that will continue to grow to something on the order of 1,500 residents when we're completed with the development. In closing, I'd just like to thank state staff for the incredibly complex task of deploying this program over the past year. It's been a thoughtful process. It's going to be an incredibly impactful process done in a very short period of time. And that itself, I think, alone is a wonderful testament to the type of collaboration that we as Californians are going to need to employ as we tackle the environmental and societal challenges that are before us. Century looks forward to closing on our Anchor Place development, inviting all of you to our groundbreaking later this year or early next year probably. And again, just we'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you for that. All right. Any further comments? So let me once again thank Mike McCoy and wish you the best of luck, and we'll be seeing you very soon. So with that, we are adjourned with a good morning's work. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we definitely did some talk.